Is technology making our roads safer? States are interested in automated enforcement, automated cars, and telematics, and our cars and trucks are becoming more high-tech than ever before. Both of today's guests see the benefit of technology for safety. One is an early adapter of innovative strategies. Our other guest says we need to ask tough questions. He uses words like mayhem and chaotic to describe self-driving cars and their effect on our roads. Joining us are Rick Birt, who has an impressive history with traffic safety. He's now the Vice President of Government Operations and Safety for BusPatrol.
It happens hundreds of times a day that people selfishly forego and don't think about the safety of our kids as they selfishly pass that stop arm, oftentimes due to distractions, inattention, all the things that we talk about in other sectors of traffic safety.
Our other guest is David Zipper, a senior fellow at the MIT Mobility Initiative. David also is a contributing writer at Vox and Bloomberg City Lab.
The whole purpose of autonomous vehicles is to make car trips more pleasant. And when there's an experience that gets better, people want to do more of that experience, right? It's human nature. So there's a real risk that you end up with way more cars on the road.
We meet them at the intersection.
This is The Intersection with Governor's Highway Safety Association CEO Jonathan Adkins.
Thank you, Rick and David, for joining us at The Intersection. All right, I want to get right into it. And Rick, I'm going to start with you. Our audience knows you from your time at SAD as the CEO and most recently leading highway safety efforts in DC. So what the heck are you doing now?
Yeah, Jonathan, great to be with you. Always great to partner with GHSA. I now have the honor of serving as the Vice President of Government Operations and Safety for an organization called BusPatrol. We are a community partner, really a tech solution that's leveraging automated enforcement, automated intelligence, and a variety of tech solutions to keep kids safe on and off the school bus through the power of stop arm enforcement. So excited to talk more about our solutions, how we can partner with states, and some of the resources that we have available in the educational space as well.
So you've been there a couple of weeks, right? And so think about what's surprising you so far and putting your highway safety hat on. Like, what are the opportunities with the technology that maybe you didn't even expect?
Yeah, I spent a good portion of my career talking about teen driver safety and the challenges that novice drivers face behind the wheel. And one of the things that we've told parents for, I think, decades is that the safest way to get to and from school is on the school bus, that big yellow, well-known icon. And while that's still true, I've been shocked to learn about the safety challenges that our kiddos face each and every day. According to the National Association of State Directors of Pupil Transportation Services, another great partner to BusPatrol, we've found that 45.2 million times a year, there are illegal running of stop arms across the U.S. It happens hundreds of times a day that people selfishly forego and don't think about the safety of our kids as they selfishly pass that stop arm, oftentimes due to distractions, inattention, all the things that we talk about in other sectors of traffic safety. And tragically, that results in thousands of incidents every year where kiddos are hurt during what should be one of the safest parts of their day, going to and coming home from school.
I knew it was a problem, but I didn't realize it was that big of a problem. I'll be honest with you. That's an incredible statistic and impact. So, David, you've written a lot about the role of technology and what the public thinks. What's your reaction to hearing about this technology, and what do you think the public is going to think about it or does think about it?
Well, my suspicion is that the public, especially parents, are going to love it. But my question is, does it actually work? In the sense that are there actually academic studies that show that this sort of technology actually reduces collisions and crashes? Because there's a lot of things we do in road safety that are based on what I would call vibes rather than data. And I think it's really important to let the research guide us in terms of where we place our efforts. And I don't know, frankly, what the data or research might say, Rick. So that would be my first question, though.
Yeah, it's a great question. If I may, Jonathan, one of the things that we completely agree with is really being data driven in everything that we do. Data driven in how we deploy the technology. Data driven in how we evaluate the technology. We've found that less than 10% of people who receive a citation each year receive a second one. So when we talk about tools in our toolbox that are changing behavior, this is certainly one of them. Although, again, adopting a safe system approach, we know that we have to really think about the whole system in its entirety. We can't just rely on enforcement. We also have to think about engineering. And so we work with school districts, with school departments of transportation to say, hey, are there ways to move bus stops to make sure our kids are safe? We certainly talk about the safer people aspect. How can we combine education into what we're doing? How can we be really zoned in on talking to drivers, especially who oftentimes, again, are in that rush, in that moment, past the stop sign, maybe don't know the law. And so really thinking about the whole system, I think, is how we get to what you're talking about, David, moving beyond vibes and moving to impact.
We have to have, any highway safety program has to be based on data, and it can't just be based on vibes, but we also have to be willing to try some new things, right? And we don't always have the research. And so being willing to try something new and different is really important. So keeping on this technology theme, so David, the other day I posted something about Waymo, and I kind of thought in the back of my mind, I'm like, David Zipper won't like this, which is okay. It's one of the reasons we wanted you to be here today, is I want to have people on that will bring different ideas, and it's not just the same old, right? And so I want to ask you about, I'm a big fan of Zoox and Waymo and all this promising technology, but you've written on Blue Sky and other places about some concerns that you have. So, what are your concerns, and what should we in highway safety be doing about them?
Well, that's
good question.
How much time do we have? Remind me. Yeah. I have a lot of questions about autonomous vehicles. And I wrote I'm a contributing writer at Vox, and I wrote a story that actually, that I've talked a lot about since then, because it seemed to make a splash, noting that at scale, robotaxis and autonomous vehicles would lead to potentially crushing gridlock. And massive amounts of traffic, because the whole purpose of autonomous vehicles is to make car trips more pleasant. And when there's an experience that gets better, people want to do more of that experience, right? It's human nature. So there's a real risk that you end up with way more cars on the road at scale with AVs that could be just really bad for all kinds of things in cities and for climate and what have you. I also think it could be bad for safety. It's a second order issue, because you end up pushing people away from transit, because the buses that get stuck in congestion, but really, if you want to be safe, don't get into a giant SUV. I would say get into a bus, because that thing you're going to be really safe. If something hits you inside that bus. But I think from a safety perspective, Jonathan, if you want to look directly at the safety stuff, I guess I'm sort of scratching my head a little bit when I see folks in the road safety community glom on to robotaxis as it almost feels like a panacea. Like, hey, this is finally going to solve our problem around crash deaths, which are so high in the U.S. We're just failing at road safety, I would say, because for a couple of things. For one thing, I don't think we know whether self-driven cars are safer than human-driven cars. The data just isn't there, and we can talk about that if you'd like to. But beyond that, even if they were actually safer, I guess the question that I have, well, there's two. First of all, is are they going to induce so much more driving that the simple added exposure of people taking more self-driven trips, more car trips, creates added risks that more than compensates for being safer on an individual trip? But then I guess, and this is, sorry, I'm giving a long answer, but I want to just walk through it. My last point would be just sort of and this is something where I guess I do ask you questions on LinkedIn every now and then, Jonathan.
That's okay.
I'm just sort of find myself asking,
it's good for my engagement, so thank you.
Well, again, no, hey, I'm here for you, right? Is like, if even if AVs do improve safety, in what world is this the highest ROI way to reduce crashes in a country where, we don't have bike lanes and we don't have intelligent speed assist and so many other things we could be doing? So I guess that's why I'm skeptical.
And it's good to be skeptical. I think we all have to be. To react to a couple of things, and Rick, I'm going to ask you to jump in a minute too, putting your highway safety office hat on. Once a highway safety office, always a highway safety office director, right? But go back to your comment about vibes, David. Like some of the, we don't have research to say some of the things that you fear could happen are going to happen, right? And so I was over the weekend. I went to MGM in Maryland, and I took a ride-hailing. Uber Lyft kind of thing. Obviously, I'm not going to say which one, but the driver was on his cell phone again. And so I had to literally say, if you're taking me this far, you got to be off your phone. More than happy to do it. Was a really nice guy. It all worked out fine. But I thought about, gosh, if I had been in Phoenix, I would have just taken a Waymo, which I do. And anytime I go to Arizona, I've never had an issue. It's clean. It's safe. I don't have to worry about the driver being distracted, right? It takes that human element out of it. And so I think for me, I don't see it as a one size thing that's going to just solve everything, but it's part of that solution. And I go back to my mom now, who's in her 80s, and just a few years ago when she was still really active, it would have been great if she could have gotten a Waymo to go places. She didn't have bus service. Lived in a rural part of South Carolina. That's not something that's coming. And so I would have loved to have had that opportunity. And so I do want to make also a comment, and I think it's an area where you and I differ a little bit, David, which is fine. We're making a lot of progress in roadway safety. We're finally seeing, we're now in 3 solid years now of declines, right? After those big bumps that we had during COVID. And we're not where we need to be. 0 has to be the goal. But I see some momentum building, and it's because of the safe system approach. It's because of better infrastructure. It's because of a lot of the building that we're doing. It's because of having more law enforcement on the streets again, because of technological solutions. And so I think I see things as a little bit more positive maybe and where we're headed. And so, Rick, that's a long answer to a long answer, but jump in there.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to be the beating the same drum here. And then I think, as you just said, Jonathan, I think we have to look at the system, right? And I think we have to look at the system now and think about where the system will be 5, 10, 50 years from now. In my time in DC, as we talked about autonomous vehicles, we were very clear that we were not bending our system to fit autonomous vehicles. We wanted autonomous vehicles to fit our solution now and then adapt with us as times, technology, and the infrastructure and society, quite frankly, changed. So I think there are a number of levers, and David, you and I have talked about this before, a number of levers we have to pull, and figuring out in what order we pull those is really how we stop the carnage that's on our roadways and start to change the culture. So I think there's opportunities to think about how autonomous vehicles and technology can be part of the solutions now, and then begin to think for the future about how that system can adapt to as the technology changes as well.
So, well, I would just note that, Oslo, Helsinki have gone years without pedestrian, cyclist, even actually car occupant deaths as well, without any autonomous vehicles at all. Hoboken's done it too, without autonomous vehicles at all. I think when we say, and Jonathan, I think you've said this, that autonomous vehicles have to be part of the solution for roadway safety, I'm not sure that they do, based on the experiences of other places that have had a lot of success. So I'm not sure why we have to jump to assuming that they have to be part of the solution. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But I think if we presuppose that they need to be, I think that we are potentially distracting ourselves from known solutions like road diets, like automatic enforcement cameras, which I think all 3 of us really like at stoplights. Solutions like that I worry that we all know that AVs dominate conversations. State legislators get really excited about them. And I really wish that we could channel, say, 25% of that enthusiasm toward deploying known tactics that reduce crashes and save lives, as opposed to AVs, which might potentially save lives at some point in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a yes and, right? I think all these things have a lot of promise. And you mentioned some known technologies and the things that are coming. Rick, I want you to jump in on my favorite topic, intelligent speed assist. You've done more, I think, than any highway safety office director in the country while you were in that role. Highlight a little bit what you've done. And then, David, I want you to think about and chime in on how we can scale that, because I know you're a big fan of this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, when we look at the data, speed is what I'll call the silent killer in the conversation, right? For decades, we've known that it's a dangerous conversation, and we in this country just have a fascination and, dare I say, an obsession with speed. So when we look at the tools in the toolbox, when I was in DC, one of the things that we knew is that we had to change the dynamics around speed. And so, again, the STEER Act, which required that to be a tool for offenders, was a great step, a nation-leading step in that effort. That is now in full swing, and kudos to the DC Department of Motor Vehicles for operationalizing that first in the nation program. But we knew that wasn't enough, and so we knew that intelligent speed assist was an opportunity to really change the dynamic on our roadways. And so we thought, okay, when we get to that slice of the pie of the safe system approach, when we get to safer vehicles, what really can highway safety offices do? And I think so oftentimes we say, well, hey, we're not an EOM, we don't design cars. That slice of the pizza isn't for us. But there actually is a role. And so what we did is lean into the idea of, okay, the district government has about 4,000, 5,000 vehicles in our fleet. What if we piloted that technology in a portion of our fleet and used that as an opportunity to not only change the conversation, but change the dynamic on our roadways? Because at any point, there are hundreds of DC-owned vehicles on our roadways. And so if those vehicles are going the speed limit, how does that then change the overall dynamic on our roadways? And so we've, in partnership with GHSA and in partnership with the coalition that's working hard on this work, we were able to put intelligent speed assist on over 300 district vehicles. Started with a small pilot within our DC School Connect, our DC program that provides school bus transportation to our kiddos who are going long distances. And we're able to expand that to 300 additional vehicles across the fleet. I know, and talking with my colleagues that are still there doing that life-saving work, that pilot is ongoing. We're collecting data. We're understanding how, if any, in any way, there is an operational challenge. We don't anticipate there being any operational challenge, but certainly it was one that caught the attention of our community, and understanding that, again, we want our vehicles, particularly our employees who are driving those vehicles, to be modeling the behavior we want to see in others, and using that as an opportunity to advance the use of a technology in a meaningful way.
David, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can argue about AVs, but when we start talking about intelligent speed assist, this turns into a love fest, because I think all of us think it's a great technology.
We need a little more love in the world right now, so this is good.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true, actually. No, I mean, this is an example where it's a tactic that has been shown to work when you're talking in particular about active ISA, which like physically restricts the vehicle's speed, as opposed to passive, which is now required in Europe on new cars. And that just sort of makes like an audible chime, or you can override it basically. And by the way, it's really annoying in Europe. I don't know if you've driven a European car with this feature. It's really irritating that you this little ding every time you're going like 1 kilometer per hour over the speed limit, and people hate it. So I do think that and then, I would say it's been a rocky year for road safety in the U.S. There hasn't been a whole lot that I at least feel like celebrating, but at the state level, it is exciting to see Washington State and Virginia adopt ISA legislation. Rick, I agree with you. I think DC is a leader in what's happened. I think your work there was laudable. But I will say it's interesting. One lesson I've learned from following ISA, I've written several articles about it in Vox and in Fast Company, is that it seems that there's more political interest in adopting ISA for fleets like you did, Rick, or to require it on the vehicles of those who are basically reckless drivers, as opposed to what Scott Wiener tried in California, which is to mandate it across all new cars sold in California, and what NTSB has suggested recommended be required by NHTSA at the federal level. I don't see a lot of interest or engagement around that, but it seems almost bipartisan to see the rallying around the fleet ISA and the reckless driving ISA.
Yeah, I would have, and if I were a betting man, and I am, I would have been wrong. I wouldn't have thought we would have made as much progress as we have. And I think it's, talking about super speeders. We're not talking about somebody going 27 and a 25. And so I think the public is there. David, you give me these good softballs. I can't let it go. Talk to me about why it's been a rocky year. We look at fatality numbers, and the first quarter of 2025 was a dramatic decline in deaths across the country. Not where we need to be, but we're now talking about 3 straight years of pretty significant decline. So not that we're where we should be, but what do you see as rocky, and what are the opportunities?
Oh, well, I think, just really quick in terms of the overall level of road deaths, yes, we've had modest, very small drops in road deaths in the last 3 years. We are, and you know this, both of you, as a country, we are double, triple, quadruple the per capita crash death rates of every other rich country. An American is 2.5 times more likely to die in a crash than a Canadian. That gap is widening. Candidly, we're terrible at road safety compared to every other rich country in the world. And the last few years haven't really changed that, I would say. But putting that aside, when you asked, Jonathan, why am I sort of seeing not a whole lot to celebrate this year? I'll be honest. I don't know how you guys will want to come down on this, but it's been very disheartening to me to see the Trump administration get rid of the autonomous vehicle office within NHTSA. Basically, they all got doged. To see that the proposal that was made last year to finally have an element of the federal motor vehicle safety standards that would address pedestrian safety and car design seems to be shelved by the Trump administration. I'm not seeing a whole lot at the federal level, at least, that gets me the complete street stuff has disappeared from FHWA's website. It doesn't feel to me like there's a lot of serious discussion at the federal level about street safety or crash reduction that gets me feeling optimistic.
What do you think about the HALT Act? And the HALT Act is the impaired driving technology that will prevent the vehicle from driving. Right, you won't be able to operate your car if you're drunk. And we didn't really get anywhere. Unfortunately, it's been a bipartisan challenge in the last administration. They missed the date, but we just recently had Matt's 45th anniversary, and there seems to be a lot of movement in Washington and a lot of talk about this. Would love to know, as a skeptic, David, what you're thinking about this technology, and then Rick, jump in as well.
Yeah,
I'll just be really quick because I don't know where things stand at this exact moment with the HALT Act, but I'll say there's an interesting, it's almost like a philosophical debate, as I understand it, from when I was looking at this probably about a year ago since I really went into it. It's like you could have like technology to prevent drunk drivers from starting their car, which is good. But there's an alternative way of looking at it, which is basically to use driver monitoring systems to prevent people to operate their car if they're incapacitated for whatever reason. Let's say they're on drugs. Let's say they're exhausted. Those are not the same technologies at all. In fact, it's kind of different pathways. And it's an important and I think not obvious decision about which way to go. Rick, you're probably more immediately familiar with this with your work here in DC. So I'll kick things over to you.
Yeah, it is an interesting conundrum. I think there's promise in that we in the traffic safety community, I think more than ever, are seeing the promise of technology as part of the solution. From my lens here at BusPatrol, I see that in that we have over 400 school districts that we're working with that have embraced our technology as a way to keep kiddos safe on that daily commute. That means that over 2 million students that we service every day are having a safer route to school. So I think for the first time, maybe more so than ever, whether it's ISA, whether it's stop arm enforcement, we're seeing that technology movement kind of advance. When we talk about the HALT Act and impaired driving, I don't really understand, to be quite candid, the issue. For over 4 decades, we've talked about the dangers of impaired driving, and it still continues to be a prevalent issue. I think, again, technology can be part of that solution. I think there's still a lot of skepticism on the technology that can be easily overcome. There have been great advances in what the technology looks like, and literally day by day, technology is advancing. So I think we have to go back to, in some ways, the drawing board to make sure that we're educating on where technology stands today, having more conversations like this, and encouraging highway safety offices to look at how they can be a part of adopting that technology for further advancement of case studies and pilots. I know Connecticut's doing that work and is doing wonderful things there. I think there's more opportunities to pilot that technology, to get more proof of concept, to jettison the skepticism and advance the needle in a really meaningful way.
Rick, highway safety offices cannot buy technology in most
Right.
cases, and so how would they support a school district that wants to bring in the stop arm technology?
Yeah, our business proposition is very unique. It's one of the things that actually drew me to BusPatrol as a former school board member and advocate for school districts for many years. In most cases, our partners are the school district, and in most cases, the school districts pay $0 for the program. We upfront all the costs of the technology, and we make it so that it's an offender-funded program. So it's actually the individuals who are breaking the law, who are putting our children at risk, who are paying for the costs of the program. And so there's no ask of the Highway Safety Office to buy technology or to be part of that solution. One way we can partner, and we want to partner with highway safety offices, is getting the word out and educating on the law, educating on the dangers of this behavior. We have a wide array of educational materials that can be co-branded, that can be used for print, digital, earned media opportunities. October includes National School Bus Safety Week, and we have campaigns that go throughout the course of the year. And so there's opportunities, whether it's back to school, whether it's for the holidays, whether it's during time changes, a lot of those moments when people maybe are changing their daily commute, that we'd love to partner with the Highway Safety Office to leverage those resources to have community level conversations. That's one of the reasons why I was right on the team, is to really figure out how we can engage the community and build up our advocates in this space, so that we can expand the message and get the word out to stop this risky behavior.
Which benefits everyone, whether a school district is using the technology or not, right?
That's
because
right.
anytime we better engage the community, we know that can make a difference. As we start to think about closing out here, I want you both to think about something that the highway safety offices need to do differently. David, I'm going to guess you have 35 different things, but think about the top one. And Rick, I want you to tell us something that doesn't involve buses. We covered that. It was a great discussion. But what would you like to see highway safety offices maybe rethink or do a little bit differently? And we'll start with Rick and then let David jump in.
Yeah, I would say this: don't be afraid of innovation across the board, right? I think it's very easy to go back to the NHTSA countermeasures that work and to rely solely on the pigeonhole we're oftentimes put in of looking for 3-star countermeasures and more. Don't be afraid to try something new, whether that's in the tech space, whether that's a whole blood program. I am a huge proponent of looking at pre-hospital whole blood and finding ways to leverage that as a proven countermeasure. Maybe that's trying something new and engaging a new partner in the community. I think there's such a temptation to rinse and repeat, rely on the same grantees that we get every year. I know how hard that is. It's hard to get new grantees in the door. It's hard to build those relationships. There are a million things that our federal and even our state partners are asking us as highway safety offices to do. But in that moment, maybe even today as you're listening to this podcast, what's one new innovative thing that your office could try? What's the data telling you is one of your greatest challenges? And what's one new tool in the toolbox that you could leverage, an idea you could steal? GHSA is a wonderful resource for idea sharing. Leverage those opportunities to find what's working somewhere else and figure out how to adopt that for your own state.
And think about BusPatrol, right? There you go.
And think about how again, technology can be part of the solution,
Sure.
Especially that stop arm program. There's lots of opportunities there.
David, jump in. I know you've got some good ideas.
I think you guys may know this. I just started a podcast a few months ago called Look Both Ways with David and Wes, which is done with Wes Marshall. Some of you may know him. He's an engineer and professor at University of Colorado, Denver. Wrote a book provocatively titled "Killed by a Traffic Engineer." He and I, when we on our podcast, we talk a lot about how there's a real need in road safety, and I think what a lot of state DOTs and safety professionals do, to not just innovate, because everyone loves innovation. I've never met anybody who talks about roadway safety who says, no, I want less innovation. But so go ahead and innovate. Yep. I'll get 2 thumbs up, but also evaluate and stop doing what doesn't work. There are tactics around road safety that have endured for decades for no good reason. The 85th percentile rule, which really should be dumped. For decades, we assumed that clear zones were really good for safety because you're removing things like trees that a wayward driver might hit. when they go off the road. It turns out once we actually do the analysis, it turns out that actually when you expand clear zones, people drive faster and you're more likely to have a serious crash. And we still have state DOTs that are spending money on things like pedestrian targeted awareness campaigns that really, you may have fun puns and interesting one-liners like that, but there's no study that I've ever seen that shows that it does anything to save lives. So I would encourage everyone working on street and road safety to, yes, experiment, try new things, but also be rigorous to retire and stop doing what doesn't work. We need to be honest about what we have learned and stop throwing good money after bad.
And there's no shade to that, right? Like things change over time. The way click or ticket is still very valuable as an example, but the way we do click or ticket now shouldn't be the way we did it decades ago. Younger people aren't reacting the same way to that strong enforcement message that my generation, I'm now at the point where I say my generation, reacted, right? And so, I don't think anything you said is disagreeable there, David. It's okay to modernize and try our thinking, but we have to give, whether it's the DOT or the Highway Safety Office, we've got to give them a little bit of ability to fail at the same time, right? Because we try something, it may not work.
Oh yeah. No, I think that's right. I mean, honestly, Jonathan, you and I agree on some things and disagree on some things. So one thing, if I could give you encouragement, I would love to see GHSA sometimes say privately, nobody's supposed to be public, but if a state DOT official comes to you and says, hey, we're thinking about doing blah, 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 you might say, actually, this other state, Ohio, tried that and evaluated, it didn't work. So I would encourage you to do something else. Awesome. That was such a powerful role for GHSA to play. And no one needs to be embarrassed. No one needs to feel bad about it. But I would really love it if some of the things if we can learn from what doesn't work as well as what does.
Rick, go ahead. I know you're anxious.
I was going to say, David, I can assure you those conversations do happen. Again, I think there's a balancing act here, right? Again, using what we know works, and again, adopting, as Jonathan said. I can assure you that GHSA does facilitate those conversations. Not as a former GR, I can't tell you the collaboration that exists amongst the offices to say, hey, what did that really work? Oh, okay, no, okay, let's try something else. So I think there's opportunity for more of that discussion, and I think opportunities for more community buy-in into what we're doing, finding ways to communicate out those successes and those opportunities to pivot in a way that ensures transparency. Again, we understand as highway safety offices that we're entrusted, I think, with two of the most important things that we have. Trying to help people improve their safety and also their tax dollars. So it's a constant balancing act of walking that high wire. And so I think they're agreed. There's opportunities there to be more open about that conversation and advance the needle of safety in a really meaningful way.
Sorry, I know we got to end, Jonathan. Can I just make one last point?
Please,
you can cut this if you need to. No, it's just like we all want the same thing. We want fewer crash deaths, and we want people to see the state DOTs and their highway safety agencies to be allies and leaders in that. I just would say I know a lot of advocates, a lot of people who follow this stuff on social media or just because they care and they live wherever they live, and it just does such damage to their confidence in these state offices when they hear something like what happened in Georgia a few years ago, where there was a pedestrian safety fashion show where people were wearing bright colors walking down the runway, or the giant eyeballs that are sort of this notorious example. People wearing giant eyeballs to talk about pedestrian safety in downtown Denver a few years ago, which I know Colorado DOT was yeah, that was a mistake. And I respect them for acknowledging that. But these sorts of things are just it's a bit of a face palm. Please don't do that, because it actually undermines confidence that people should have in their public servants doing the best things they can using taxpayer dollars the best ways possible to reduce crashes.
So we learn, right? We're all learning. We're looking at what's effective, and it's numbers. It's lives saved. We want more people to get home safely. We want more people around that table. And fortunately, the last couple of years, we are going in that right direction. I'm a big fan of momentum. We're not where we need to be, but momentum builds momentum. And we start to look at why are we having progress now that we didn't have a couple of years ago. And so with that, I want to thank Rick and David for joining us at the intersection. And I want to thank our audience as well. And I hope you will sign up to get notified about future programming at ghsa.org.